nonprofit's important because literally, we were talking about this yesterday. You're the safety net for society.
Agreed.
In so many cases, or the betterment of society.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing, and so I think that's why it's really critical to understand how to communicate what you do and who you are. That way, you can make that connection with a donor really quick, and they can see what you do.
Yep.
So,
do you want to give it one more minute for folks to come in, or you think we're good?
I think let's roll.
Okay.
There's so many people listening to this now recorded because people have learned to do that, and it gets out so many people. So
yep. So for all those folks that are going to be watching this, thank you so much in advance. Everyone that's here, cannot thank you enough for being here. It's an exciting day. This is episode 90. So really, really, really cool. A great topic. Be inspired to think bigger, or we're here to encourage you to think bigger. We're going to give you some really cool strategies on how to do that right away. But before we get going, the reason why we these are always conversations. So please interact with us. Stay till the very end. We're going to give away an auction item that you can use. Obviously, chat feature. We're already using Q&A function at the bottom. Love having a conversation. If you haven't been with us before, this is what we do. As I like to say, this is not your grandma's webinar. This is not another one of those webinars where it's just us talking like Charlie Brown's teachers. So let's have a conversation. We want to hear some feedback from you all. The reason why we chose this topic this week is because we listen to the market, we listen to our audience, and we listen to folks that we have the pleasure of working with. And a lot of folks are reaching out to us and saying, yeah, we want to start making some changes. Wanted to ask you a few questions because we just kind of want to think bigger. And so I'm posing a few questions and feedback as it pops into your mind. You don't have to answer all at once, but I'm posing, why is this such a popular thing that we're hearing? Why are people so encouraged to make changes and be creative, take risks, calculated risks, and to think bigger about what they're asking for? Is it because, there's new people in their role, for instance, because we saw a ton of turnover the last few years and a lot of people step into new roles. And we talked to a lot of folks who are like, yeah, I just started this position. I really need some coaching. I really need some help. Is it through osmosis because you're seeing other organizations in your community or nationally or online crushing it and you want to too, because you see them doing some really cool creative stuff? Or, is it even rooted in success? You're even thinking bigger because you've made some changes already. You've thought bigger, you've made bigger asks, you've pushed the envelope, so to speak, and you've already tasted success and you just want to keep twisting the dial. So, what is it? Why is this such a important topic?
Or is it that you're getting your tail kicked and you've got to rethink things?
100%. Yeah, we feel like our model is outdated and I think there's something going on. I call us enthusiasts, but at the end of the day, we're students, right? We're students of this. Jason and I both pay tremendous attention. We're also exceptionally fortunate that we get to talk to so many people, and our inboxes are always full with questions and ideas, and people, thank goodness that we have the equity that we've created where people trust us and our opinion, and we love sharing it and we give it away. But it's exactly that. And so we're seeing a lot of folks just say, hey, we got to make some changes because COVID, however devastating it was on so many levels, has thrust a lot of organizations into the forefront of raising money because they did such a tremendous job because they had to, right? They were forced to. And what came out of that is just, a few of these organizations, if not, hundreds, if not thousands, have become like pure fundraising juggernauts. And they're unabashed, and maybe they have new people in positions that are, I don't know any better. Naivety is bliss. I don't know any better, so I'm just going to ask, because at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to tell you no, or what have you,
Trevor and I talk about this a lot. I think one of the things that comes to my mind when we're talking about this topic is that it has changed. The world has changed. Yes. I think there's a lot of very large nonprofits that have been trading off their name and equity that they've had for the last 20, 30 years. And all of a sudden they're finding out it's really hard to do that. And I think the reason is because they're trading off their name and any equity they had, and not talking about the mission that they perform. And, I'm not going to name any names, but I truly believe that. And I've talked to executive directors and, presidents of these organizations of the different states and around, and they're like, man, it's really, really hard now. Well, part of the reason it's really, really hard is because you're not doing anything new. You're just going out and expecting people to write checks because you're asking them to, and you're not talking about what you do. The one thing that we're seeing, the people that are having the biggest impact, and I'm talking about the missions, the organizations that are doing it, is when they effectively communicate their mission, what they have done, what they're doing, and what they're going to do.
Remember that. Yep.
When they effectively communicate that, that connects with donors on an emotional level, which is the number one that you have to, it's not logic, it's emotion. And what that does is you connect emotionally, that attaches to those heartstrings to the wallet. And that's whenever they make these decisions. Now you still have to have logic with it, but I think that, and the reason we talk about thinking big is because one of the things that I find really intriguing is, this really simple fact that if you don't ask, it's not going to happen.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
How many times have we talked to somebody, Trevor, and we're saying, well, what's the most that you've asked for in your event? And they said $10,000. What's the most that you got? $10,000.
A lot of times you get what you ask for.
I used this as an example. One night, this was a fund to need, and they wanted me to start at 10. I asked for 25,000. Guy raised his hand, and then the executive director went and talked to the donor and said, "Wow, thank you so much." And he goes, "Well, heck, if Jason would have asked for more, I'd have given more."
Yep.
That just tells you, you got to do that when people are in that deal. And and I'm just going to tell you, there are some auctioneers, and I'm retired from that, don't do it anymore. But there are some that'll say, well, I won't do it unless I know somebody's going to raise their hand. Then go find a new auctioneer. I'm just going to tell you, if that's what they tell you, go find somebody new.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit and stretch and push. But that's enough. Okay. So
let's talk about the actionable steps. Yeah.
Let's talk about some actionable steps to think big.
Yep.
First, I think that you need to establish a couple of things. One, what is it that you have to get done? What do you need to get out of this first? That needs to be your first number. And I believe in starting from where we need to be and then building everything in reverse. I don't care whether this is a building project, we're doing a capital campaign. This is a year-end ask. This is an event, a gala, a golf tournament. It doesn't matter. If it's talking about raising money, you've got to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit. And when we say take a risk, I know in the nonprofit world, period, it is very conservative thinking when it comes to getting outside our comfort zone. So what I'm asking you to do is to make a comfort zone. If you've got your upcoming event and the biggest sponsorship that you've been asking for is 10,000, no matter whether you've ever got it or not, double it. How simple is that?
Hey, if people want to give 10, they'll still give you 10.
But I had somebody tell me, they said, well, what's the most you asked for? 25. I said, have you got it? No. Then ask for 50. Still leave 25 and ask for 50. But what all are we going to give them? We already give them everything. Don't give them anything more.
Don't think you need to.
You don't need to.
Tell them about the work that you're doing.
People don't want tables. They want recognition. They want to be the big. They want a reason to give to you. But you've got to have that conversation with them to let them know, if you give $50,000, we're going to be able to put hockey gear on,
50 kids,
100 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Hockey gear is expensive, and I'm just using that
make
as
it
an
quantifiable. Yep, make it quantifiable.
Yeah. And I really, you got to get your mind right with pushing people out to say, this is what your money's going to do. When it just goes into the black hole of abyss, it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't have a 50 grand's a big check. And even if I can write a $50,000 check and not miss it, and we're talking about people with significant capacity or, companies, things like that, which I personally think you need to go for individuals over companies. There's pluses and minuses for both. You should go after both by any means. But, when you're reaching out there, you got to let them know what this is going to be. This is what this does. And even if they can't come in at 50, you're still putting that deal, you're making the ask. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sit there and started an auction and said, who give $10,000? And everybody kind of laughs. We started 1,000. And before it's over with, we sold it for 15 grand. You're just planting seeds and letting people think about it and what that kind of impact do you want to have. And I think that's part of it is you've got to set those goals and those stretch goals and design everything that way.
Always remember the math.
Always remember the math. With our committee meetings, and I'm just, you can do a show of hands, and those who do the recording, I'd love to hear your when you're listening to this. I'd love to get your comments below. How many times have you started off the committee meeting and the first thing that comes out, the first thing people start talking about is somebody goes, "Hey, I know so-and-so, we could get a hold of him and he could put his place in Aspen in there. We could auction that off." Well, that's great. And there's a time and a place for that. But we're starting talking about auction items. We haven't even talked about who's going to come in the room or our sponsorship, our underwriting. And we're getting things all out of place. So if you want to rethink things and start thinking big, and you want to go from raising 75,000 to 700,000, this is where you start.
You reverse engineer it. Got to reverse engineer it.
Yeah, everything's got to be reverse engineered. And we put this as bonus content, but it kind of works in here. How to get the right people in the room, how to get the right revenue generators.
Yep.
And how to create the excitement. And those things happen. And the very first thing is getting the right people in the room. And I know I say this probably seems like it comes up over and over again, but if that's where you've got to start.
Yep.
And the first thing it starts with is, who do we know? And you've got to get that buy-in from go find who your top 10 people are. We talked about this on a podcast yesterday. Maybe we can put a link on there for that when it comes out. That whenever we start out and we're wanting to start these things, we need to go get our stakeholders, our biggest fans, get their buy-in, because whenever they get their buy-in and they get emotionally attached to it, they will write big checks.
Yep.
And they'll and they'll go out of their way to do it. They'll start telling you, "Hey, don't worry about it. I'll just cover that. Yeah, let's just pull this. Yeah, I'll take care of it." I mean, they'll start giving you money because they're in. Their buy-in happens. They're fans, and that's where you've got to start with.
Yep.
So you got to start with the people. I don't care if he just wrote you a check or she just wrote you a check for $100,000. That's the person you got to start with, because they obviously they're bought in. They've paid. They've stroked a check. They're investing. So whenever a company, whenever a business who's raised money from investors, okay, and they come back and they go, "Hey, we need to go raise another 100,000." The first people they go back to are the people that have already put money
said
in.
Yes. Yep.
They've already said yes. They've already seen
Very
all
true.
the numbers, all the stuff. They're just saying, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we've done. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to do."
In sales, they call them repeat clients because they've already felt the pain. They're already over the pain. Yeah.
They're emotionally involved at that point.
Yep.
And so that's really, getting those right people involved.
Yep.
So, practical steps. First thing, ask for more money.
Love that. You have nothing to lose. If the most you've ever gotten for a table, I've heard Jason say this 50 times, and we've been repeating it for almost 90 weeks now. It seems like probably every week. But if the most you've ever gotten for a table is 1,000, ask for 2.
Well, I would say ask for 10.
I was going to say ask for 4, but you get my point.
And if somebody's got a specific example where they're doing that,
where it's worked, where it hasn't worked, any feedback where
a challenge,
where you're about ready to do it, but
I love it when somebody
trepidation.
throws down a challenge, because I absolutely believe and know. It's not I believe. I can give you an example after example after example of how these simple things create really big results.
Hey, Jason, they're going to, you're asking us, you told us to ask for 2 and the most we've ever gotten is 1. What if someone says, "Hey, I just paid for this last year and it was only 1,000. Why is it 2,000 now?" Beautiful opportunity to talk about what you've done, what you're doing, and what you're planning on doing. Because we're also under the assumption, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're pushing the envelope, so to speak, on the amount of people that you're servicing.
Oh,
the impact that you're having, right? We're always as a company, because you're still a company with a 501c3 tax designation, we're still pushing the envelope because we want growth, right? Because we want to affect as many people.
Yeah, what
as
is it you want to
possible.
do? If you want to go put hockey uniforms on 100 kids and it costs $500 a uniform, that's what we're going to do.
We got to raise money.
This is what we're going to do. We've got 100 kids.
Yep. We served
I don't wanna
100
see-
last
you know,
year. We want to serve 500 within 3 years.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
we
you
want to
know,
serve 200. We want to double it.
I'll give you a
That's
great
substantial.
I'll give you a great example. There's an organization here where I live, and they had a deal where they had this camp, and they would sponsor these kids. And they said, well, we had 25 kids that couldn't go to camp, and the donor was mad. I mean, I've never seen the guy mad ever.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a little vein popping up on his forehead, and he said, don't ever let money be the reason one of these kids can't go.
Wow. That's real.
And his point is why didn't you come to the people that care about this? We don't want anybody left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing is donors do care far, far more than you know, because otherwise they wouldn't be giving you money. And even if the biggest fan that you have can give $5,000, here's what this is how I want to say, when somebody cares about your organization to give you money, okay, or there's a relationship there somewhere. So then the next deal, maybe it's not money that you need from them. Maybe it's connections. Maybe you need to go to them and say, hey, Trevor, I really appreciate the gift that you made us last year, and I'm coming back to you. I'm definitely want you back in. I'm asking you to do that. You'd consider coming in, maybe even a higher level, because this is what we're doing. But this is what I really need from you. I need help finding 10 more people that can do what you did.
Like you.
We can get 10 more at $5,000.
What we're going to do.
That's going to make up. That's going to make up this first part of it, and because we need to raise $100,000. If I can get 10 more people at $5,000, there's 50 of it. We're halfway home. You're 5. There's 55. We've only got to make 45 up from there on. Would you be willing to come help me do that? You'd be surprised how many times somebody'd go, yeah. They pick up the phone and start giving you names.
But it also makes sense. And people like to be asked. They want to be heard. They want you to ask them for their input. That's what they're good at. Typically, a lot of these situations, these folks are good at just that, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. They network, they share ideas, strategies. Once again, just did a podcast on that, Jay. We referenced it earlier. It's ask people for their for their input, and it's a great way to it's a great way to get those contacts and to grow those contacts, right?
Yeah, and if you're bored, sometimes I know we wrestle with board members all the time about, they come out with great ideas and they'll have all kinds of really cool stuff for, the executive director and director of, well, hey, what you ought to do? Anybody have that? Can you get a hand on that?
Shoulders.
Anybody have board members that come up with lots of great things for you to do?
What you should do. Yes.
Yeah. What you should do. Well, let me tell you what you should do. And
I call them shooters.
I call a deal where you just come back and say, hey, Trevor, that is a great idea. Yeah. I tell you what, I've got my calendar out. Will you pull your calendar out? Hey, next week, let's set a time up for Tuesday. Would 2:00 work? We're going to come over there and we'll go talk to Joe, Mary, and Bob.
Yeah. Love that. Arm in arm.
I think that as nonprofit leaders, sometimes the authority that you have, it's been given to you by the board, by your donors, by that, they're looking for they will absolutely follow your lead. I as somebody who served on a board member and worked with hundreds of nonprofit leaders over the last 30 years, it's amazing. I sit there with some of these folks and I watch, because everybody's sitting there going, well, let's see what Trevor thinks. Let's see what Trevor thinks. Let's see what Robin thinks, what Gabriella thinks, what Bonnie thinks. Let's see what does Angela have to say about that. And I'm sitting here waiting, and then Angela like, well, I'm not sure. And I'm not picking on you, Angela. I'm just using an example, because they sit there and they go, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure. And the reality is you do know. Mm-hmm. It's just, we're so worried that we're going to offend somebody or bug somebody. Mm-hmm. And we got to quit thinking that way.
Asking is never a bad thing. No,
because, and I literally have seen people pick up the phone and saying, hey, I was thinking about asking so-and-so for a sponsorship gift. Why didn't you ask me? Well, I think I just did. And he goes, hold on a minute, picks his phone up, calls the other guy and says, hey, we're in for 50,000. Just like that. They got a matched gift because these two guys have a lot of money. And the executive director was worried about asking.
Yeah.
Because she's, well, I don't know.
You have the
Stop
agency.
thinking,
You have the
you know,
agency to do this. That's the
yeah,
thing. You have the
yeah,
agency to
and
do
they
this.
want that. They
Believe
want
in that.
they like that because they got money. Okay,
Hmm.
that's what
They
they
want to
have.
help.
They got
They
plenty
want to
of it. They're,
help. People
yeah,
want to help. It's a
yeah.
mindset. It's a mindset thing, and it can be, yeah, it can be groomed, and it can be coached, and it can be taught, and it can be adopted, and you have the agency to ask for more and to think bigger.
And
You just do.
I promise, I have never, ever, ever been beaten on this. Okay,
Mm, perfect
I'm
record.
throwing the gauntlet down as a
Yep.
challenge.
Batting a
Anybody wants to
thousand.
challenge me on this?
Batting a thousand.
That I promise you, everybody has $100,000 in their phone.
Yep.
Any cause, anything, you've got $100,000. You're connected to $100,000 in your phone.
The most powerful fundraising tool.
I've never qualified it just like that, but I'm doing it right now.
I love that.
Because it's not what we know, it's who we know, who we're connected to, and within usually, and every time I've ever done this, whether it was over the phone, where we did Zoom meetings, I've coached somebody to go do this, that they've done a people exercise.
Yep.
Within 30 minutes to an hour, between that person and everybody else, they'll come up with, six, 7 figures of potential giving that's there. And it's amazing how many times it happens. And they're like, I never thought about that. But if you're sitting in a meeting, if you're sitting in your committee meeting going, golly,
board. Yep.
I sure wish we could go get the local billionaire to come and be on board. Well, does anybody know him?
Someone knows him.
Well, but if you don't, or you're not one connect away, then let's not worry about that. But who do we know? So just start scrolling. And the people exercise, if you've never heard, you get your phone out, you have everybody say, pull your phone out. When you see a name of a person who you think that would be potentially could be part of our organization, I want you just to call her name out. This is just in the room. And then you go around the room. Who you got? And I'd say Angela Stewart. And Trevor writes Angela Stewart up on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie Prokop. Oh, Bonnie Prokop. Gabriella, Robin. We just start putting everybody's name up on the wall. We're not thinking anything more. Just could they possibly be something that could they possibly buy into our mission?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then you go back to the list and you go down the list. Can this person write a check for $10,000 and not miss it? Okay. Next one. You go through the list. If they can, great. If they can't, it's okay. Just and it's a can't miss it. In other words, do they have significant capacity to give? Doesn't mean they're going to. It just, do they have the capacity? We're trying to identify. Could they fill a room? Could they fill a table if we had invited them to bring a table full of people that had, would come to an event with money? Because there's some people that can't write a check for $10,000, but they're very well connected. Then the last one is, do they have special access? Mm-hmm. And the person that's, because if they're in your phone, typically, well, Trevor has a helicopter. Oh, okay. That's special access. Okay. So we do all those things and we go back and we start looking at it. Okay. Now we know that Trevor can't write a check for $10,000, not miss it. He can't fill a table, but he's got a helicopter because he doesn't have, so he has access. So mm-hmm. That's something to work with. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we know we've got something. So maybe there's a way we can do that. But the first thing we're looking at is the people that are significant giving. And without time, time and time again, it does. There are exceptions to this. Maybe that we've got a friend of ours that works with these a lot. Like he'll be working with law enforcement and stuff like that, doing these fundraisers for foundations and organizations of that such. Mm-hmm. And they start off, they're going, well, we're just a bunch of cops. We don't have any, we don't have that. Every time, once they start this process, they're able to start identifying people that have significant worth, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and people that have significant
community leaders,
ability to give, and those they come out, and once they're asked, of course I want to do that. Of course we want to support this, and it really, because anytime we can make our community better, it rises all boats. Okay. Mm-hmm. I get this, and somebody's in, we're over in the part of town that doesn't have as much money. Then go to the part of the town that does have money and talk to them about how you want to improve this part of town, and it works.
That's a worthwhile. That's a noble cause.
There was an organization that I talked to, and I went and worked with the board and the staff, and they were trying to do it, and they were in the poor part of town, a poor part of town, and they were like really struggling because they said, well, nobody around here has money. I said, then go to the place that does. I said, if you think that the business leaders, that the people of this community do not want this to better, this all parts of the city to be better, I said, you're wrong, because they do.
Yeah. Of course they do. Yeah.
And your mission is helping these kids, these that don't have any place to turn to. Rises all boats.
Everyone, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. One of the biggest events that I've been a part of is a fight night. It's mostly men. They smoke cigars, drink whiskey, and watch fights, and they raise a lot of money for kids.
Mm-hmm.
They do. I mean, they'll raise $500,000 a year for kids, and that's what they do it for. It's through the and you would think that it's for the Police Athletic League, and it's becoming, they've built on it, and every business leader in Oklahoma, in my city, Oklahoma City, wants to be there, because there's never a place that you don't see all the decision makers are there. And it's kind of become that thing. So all those, and this started, trying to send kids at inner city schools to get them into athletics. I mean, it's just so many ways. I guess I'm rambling here, but the people is the most important part. Because once you get the people, and if you're struggling with it, let us know. I mean, we're here. We're happy to help. There's no sales pitch. We're not trying to, whether you use our stuff or don't. We have people. We had somebody. We helped them raise $700,000. Didn't use any of our stuff, and they'd have raised $1 million if they had. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But it's that's not what we're here trying to do, I guess.
Steps. Here we go. Let's do some steps. What do you say?
Okay.
Yeah. So we got the people.
Well. Right. The first thing is you got to get
the right people in the room.
First thing, you got to set your goal where it needs to be. Okay. Yep. You got to raise it up. If you got to go raise $1 million, then that's what we got to do is go raise. And
we're going to go work
working the numbers backwards.
Yep.
Okay. Because if you get 100 people to give you $10,000, you're there like that. Okay. So which one is it easier to do? Is it easier to go ask 500 people or 1,000 people for $1,000, or 100 people for 10? Or 10 people for 100. If you got the right people and you ask 10 people, there's $1 million. So that's the first thing. You got to figure out what it is, manageable bites that you can chew it up. So if you've got to raise 100,000 and you're doing an event, you need to have $60,000-$70,000 of it in the bank. And what I mean by bank, not literal, but
pre-committed,
pre-committed before you ever walk in the door. Because that is where you really are able to get forward thinking. And every time somebody goes, well, these aren't coming in like we thought they would. Okay. That's where it gets to be hard sometimes. And this is where you got to go to work. Your committee's got to go to work. Your board's got to go to work. Pick up the phone. One of the biggest interrupters in the deal is a phone call, a text with a video.
Mm-hmm. That works really well.
Seriously. We had a group do that. They were slow on getting people into the event to commit. Had every one of them send a video. Everybody in the committee made a video, little selfie video. Hey, it's Jason. I just want to make sure that you knew that you were invited. Love for you guys to come out here to our event on November the 9th. See you then.
Very good.
Text
Very
it.
Effective. Yeah.
Just to start texting it to everybody they knew. Any questions on that part? Okay, well, we'll keep on going then. So, the first thing is you've got to set the deal. The next thing that you've got to do is get everybody to buy in. Everybody will follow your lead. If you say, and you've got to do this with impact, because the people that are volunteering on your committees, your board is going to follow this lead as well. If you say, well, guys, we're really short this year. I don't know if we're going to be able to make it. Boy, that's not going to get anybody fired up. But if you talk about, hey, we sent 50 kids to camp last year. Right now we're tooling up. We're tooling up to 75, and next year we want to send 100. So what are we going to do? How are we going to get there? and start, give them the lead and say, this is the first thing that we need to do. So who can we get involved? Who can we bring into the fold with us? That's number one. We just talked about that. Number two, we got to ask for more. We've got to start asking for more money. Instead, if you pick up the phone call, as I said, it takes less effort to ask 10 people for $100,000 than 10,000 for 100. And I know that makes everybody a little squeamish because it's a big number. But if the impact is there and the person has the capacity, they'll write the check more times than not. I did a deal with a guy. These guys counseled pastors, and I say counsel, they coached them totally free, and they were given a $100,000 match. And I said, what does it take to coach somebody? We kind of did the math, and it was $1,000 is what they had done to pay the coaches to do the deal. And they had all these people they had provided for no charge. And I said, okay, let's get all the people that we know. And two guys picked up the phone, started calling people that they knew in the community, and started saying, would you be willing to sign on and sponsor 4 pastors? Within 2 weeks, they went from having no money to match to having $85,000 of the match. 85 grand. They made one ask. Not everybody committed at the full $4,000. A couple people gave more that they had commit. I think they had a few people that said, I could do 2,000 because, whatever's going on. But what they found was whenever they started doing the ask and they connected it and they said, would you be willing to come on and help us do that? They didn't ask to give money. They said, would you be willing to sponsor 4 pastors? Just like the whole thing. If I'm asking for money for hockey uniforms, Angela, I'm going to say, how many kids would you be willing to sponsor this year? How many kids can I count on you for? Can you do 10? Can you do 5? Can you do 2? Maybe just do 1. Maybe do half of 1. I don't know, but that's what they're going to connect to. And be willing to make that big ask on those. Because if somebody can write a check for $1 million, I'll give you an example. If you've got a guy, a man or woman, please, when I say that, I mean either one. If you've got a person in your community that has their name on a building, they can write a big check. And when you get an audience with that person, it's almost insulting to them if you don't make a big ask. Anybody here, please, I'm begging you, don't squander those opportunities, because when you've got somebody that has that ability to give, you need to make a big ask. And, they're not looking to give $5,000. If they do, they're pretty much blowing you off and telling you go away. If they have the ability to have their name on a building, so when you get those chances, you need to be asking for 6 figures, because that's where they want to do, because they've got a lot of money and they want to make a lot of impact.
I'm going to ask a question about, for feedback from folks about events. And you're planning one right now. You have one coming up very shortly. Maybe you just finished one. You're looking at one in the spring. Mm-hmm. We were talking about making big ass and asking for more. We were going event specific. Then we went, macro as well. When it comes just asking for more and being unabashed, we talk about having the right people in the room at an event. That needs to be a massive change. And that needs to be, we're encouraging people to change their outlook on who's been invited and who's buying tables, and making sure we have the right people at those tables. For instance, I use the bank. My mom was a bank teller growing up, so no offense to bank tellers, but a person buys a table from a bank, a local bank, and makes an investment in your mission, and then they invite all the tellers. Well, no offense, like I said, no offense. The tellers might be independently wealthy, and so be it. However, most of the time, history suggests that they're not going to be giving a ton, at the event. Mm-hmm. So once again, any kind of thoughts that folks are having, or any trepidation or trouble, experience, success or not, with, getting the right people in the room for your event, adding the right revenue generators, whether that be auction items, specific donations or whatnot, because, going more myopically focused now just on events, for instance, thinking bigger, thinking changing, and thinking more creatively has been proven now over the last 18 months, 24 months that we've been paying attention. Being different, it's okay to be the pink elephant in the room full of gray elephants, as I like to say, is raising a lot of money at events specifically. Okay. So any feedback that folks are having, hey, we're not sure about, doing a live auction for the first time. Hey, we're not sure about doing a fund a need for the first time. So we want to talk about specific revenue enhancers as well, and what we've seen work really, really well in recent memory, and that will continue to do so, that weren't always the most widely adopted practices. So what are you all seeing? Any feedback is appreciated. We'll talk about it, of course, and talk about these specific revenue.
And if you're listening to this on the
we promise to do so. Yeah.
Get a comment down. We'd love to get
if you're
that
watching
back.
it on YouTube,
we'll
definitely
to the comments.
Yeah, please do.
I wanted to bring something up, and we keep talking about people because this is about how to think big, thinking bigger. And I keep going back to the people and who your biggest fans are.
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody, this is just a way around something, because I had somebody say, well, we've already printed our invitations and our sponsorship stuff. I said, okay, cool, that's fine.
Yeah, awesome.
I said, no worries. So what you do,
text and email those too.
I said, what you do is you go print up, I said, go print up 25 more. It's going to cost you, less than $20, and make these deals and then hand deliver them. Go put them in a really nice envelope, hand deliver them.
Love
and
that.
Say, this doesn't go to everybody, but it's to you because I know you can, I know you care. And we'd like to offer this invitation for you to come in as a platinum sponsor. I'm making it up.
Perfect.
The double diamond.
No, perfect. It's
and do
exclusive.
something deal at a very high rate. And, and just to do that, because, this is what we're trying to do. We're really trying to take our organization to another level. You've always been very generous. You've been part of our organization, but I wanted to hand deliver this ask.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That puts a lot of pressure on them in a good way, because you're putting it out there on their ego, because, they know that, in fact, you don't have to just do this. You could do this anyway, because everybody likes to feel special. Why do people have Black American Express cards? Do they just have, because it's exclusive? Mm-hmm. Why do people go to certain places to go? Because it's exclusive. Why do they drink $1,000 bottle of wine? Because it's exclusive. People like exclusivity. Yummy. And this is a way in the nonprofit world. What can we do to give exclusivity? What can we do to provide that? Everybody has, the VIP dinner or the VIP welcome, through the special deal, or, something over here, the sponsorship reception. Yeah. And we do things like that. People like that. They want to have the table at the front. Why do they want to have a table? Because it's the best.
Yep.
I think when we start thinking that way about, not from our perspective, but from their perspective, what's going to make them feel special? Well, you can't give them anything that they can't go buy themselves.
Yep.
Other than access.
Yep.
Which brings us to the whole revenue generator part that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
First of all, live auctions you got to hit people, and this is something I remember this, and I've said this before. A long time ago, when I used to first start, I'd ask somebody, hey, where's all the money in the room? And they'd say, well, this table, this table, this table, this table, this, blah, blah, blah. I'd get up, do the auction, and none of those people bought anything.
Yeah.
Well, and you go, well, golly, why didn't they bid? Well, because the auction item was a lawn care kit. It had a push lawnmower, a weed eater, a rake, a shovel, and a hoe.
Yeah.
They don't do their own lawn, so it's nothing they want to buy.
Sure.
And people don't want to buy stuff. They're done. Everybody has had stuff. Now,
it sounds minor, but that's
memorabilia,
a very big point.
is different. Yeah. And special, some things like that, which
collectibles,
signature stuff. And, we don't specifically deal. They want experiences and they want to go places. We know that for a fact because it breaks the bank every time. That's what raises all the money. We pay attention to everything that we do in the world of fundraising. And all the data. Nobody has ever said to me, oh, Jason, man, we had this really awesome furniture set. It was really cool. That was donated by one of the furniture stores. And boy, it brought $25,000.
Yeah.
just saying, no, it's just not what people want.
That's
They don't
definitely
want
something
stuff.
that we've noticed over the last
And
couple of years for sure.
and
That's
if
for
you
sure.
want to change the way what you've been doing, stop doing what you've done. Everybody's got, the board member or somebody, there was a very lovely man who I very respected very much, longtime board member and associate of a nonprofit I was part of. And he had this timeshare in Florida that he put in every year, and he'd be like, whoa, man, it brought 1,300 this year. Wow, it's up 100 from last year. It was in there every time. And finally, we got him to put it in the silent auction, put a minimum bid, and it was an experience, but it was the same thing over and over and over again. A little 2-bedroom place. It wasn't anything spectacular, and that's probably what it was worth. But when you get stuff that is spectacular, and you got to think about who your folks are. If you've got people that can write checks for $100,000, buying
stuff
a weekend at the lake is not going to trip their trigger.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got something that appeals to everybody, and I'm not touting our stuff, I'm just giving you an example, like our Caribbean all-inclusive, everybody in the room can afford to go to the beach. And everybody wants to, because you're doing that. So it's one of the things, we're going to go deep with it. We're going to go wide in something that everybody can participate in, and you make money on each one of those. Well, consignment's the way to go. And I hear a lot of people say, well, we don't use consignment.
That's changing.
I'm not touting just us. I'm touting this, the deal. You can go spend all this time and all this effort and all these things to go get these great experiences. And sometimes they're right there for you. Okay. Sometimes you can get those done. But all that time and effort and energy, you need to spend that selling sponsorships, underwriting, and getting the people in the room who could buy the trip in the first place. Because you could have $100,000, a trip that's worth $100,000, private jet, special access to Napa Valley, and there's nobody in the room that can spend $10,000 on it. You've kind of shot yourself in the foot, because the guy that donated it to you spends more in gas just to fire his jet up than what it's going to cost to go out there. So those are just some things on the revenue generators.
We were talking about, busted models, old thinking, things like that. I had someone recently reach out to me and said, we were going to do these best-selling items, which we don't have an agenda, but we know which ones sell the best and which ones make the most money. She said, oh, I don't think we're going to do that. Can we do something where folks don't have to pay for airline tickets? Now, is she a sweetheart? Absolutely. Am I disparaging her? Absolutely not. I'm just using it as an example. She was thinking with her own checkbook.
Yep.
And to the point of these, doesn't have to be our experiences, but experiences in general, things that enrich people's lives, gives them opportunity to spend time, with their loved ones away from home, things of that nature, or travel in groups. We've seen a lot of that. Jason and I love traveling with our wives together, for instance. That's very popular. It's not just us. When someone says, well, I just don't think we should use anything where they have to buy airline tickets. Well, she's thinking with her own checkbook, as I mentioned. The people that are going to bid on those kinds of things, they're not really thinking about, I'm sure they're economical, but they're not worried about the airline ticket cost to get there. They were probably already going to go somewhere anyway. You know what I mean? So getting out of that pattern of thinking, once again, not a bad person. Just an example that we've seen often. Actually, we're seeing less and less of it. Because talking to people about trips and experiences during COVID was a completely, bless you, by the way, was a completely different conversation. Of course, a couple of years ago, but now where it's at, and where things have come, and being part of that, the change, so to speak, these trips and experiences that we have, and other folks have, and other folks get donated and stuff like that, and seeing how well they work, that's change, that's growth. They work, they can work as revenue enhancers as well. And we're just paying attention to the market, and the market is telling us that these things work. Paying attention to the market also means every time I go to the airport, I have a decent sized international airport nearby that I fly out of whenever we go anywhere, and the parking lot's always full. Do you know what I mean? Not full, like take a chance.
People
like
are
full,
going,
like
barricaded. I don't care what the price is. People are, where you can't get parking.
Another point that we mentioned that we promised to make up, and I, once again, I'm going kind of 30,000 foot view though, Jay, is like, all of these changes and these new expectations that you'll set in place for people in the room, and different items and different revenue enhancers, and an overall mindset mind shift, and shift in mindset, pardon me, breeds a different attitude of giving, and breeds a different enthusiasm of giving. And you've got to be dialed, and you've got to sharpen the pencil, so to speak, when it comes to, we say this all the time, venue and menu. There has to be a show. There has to be some a form of entertainment. There has to be a highlight on your mission and what you've done. And these are all part of it. And you might have been doing these things, but you need to do them better now. And
yeah, can I touch on that? Can I touch on that real quick?
I would love you to.
I was recently at an event not very long ago, and I give you a couple of. If you've got a really great speaker that's coming, that's great. Because if they're a professional speaker and they're going to give a presentation, it's going to be very powerful. It can be very connective, and cool. Do that. I'm not discouraging that at all. But if you've got an awards thing going on, don't ever give those people an open mic. Either record it beforehand, and where you play the recording, so that way you can crop it down. Yeah. Or is this this organization I went to? They held everybody to a minute. They said you have 1 minute to do your acceptance. Cool.
There we go.
And this isn't the Oscars.
Yeah.
And there were some people that were very thoughtful. One is a very powerful, very well thought of guy that nobody's going to take the microphone from him. Here, and he stuck to the rule.
Yeah.
1 minute. Bam. Was done.
Have that uncomfortable conversation ahead of time. Just set boundaries.
It kept the tempo up.
Yeah.
The energy up.
Yep.
Nobody was bored. Everybody was excited.
That's
when
the
it
attitude.
came time for the time to raise money, everybody leaned in, they stayed there, they stayed with mission, and they had a great time.
Yep.
And one of the things that you gotta raise money. If you're there to raise money, let's raise some money. Keep the tempo up, make it fun, make it exciting. People will give more money when they're having a good time than when they're bored out of their mind and they get tired of listening to people.
You just mentioned something about the 1 minute rule for that particular event. I mean, at the end of the day too, though, y'all, I mean, donors are consumers. Attention is short, and we're vying for their attention, and we have to be very thoughtful. Have a show and drink,
have the show, have the party, have the band, have everybody afterwards.
Yeah.
Get your fundraising done.
Raise money in an hour.
You've got an hour to do it. Golden hour of fundraising. But do that. There are some fun things you can do, and I'm going to give you just a couple of quick things.
Have some new opportunities.
A friend of ours, try something different, and I'll give you a couple. We had an organization; they gave out bottles of champagne. Yeah. Every time somebody bought something, pop.
Awesome.
They would pop the cork.
Awesome.
Come running out there.
Yeah.
Have the champagne.
I love champagne.
Somebody did. So it really made it cool. And other people are like, how do I get that? And they started selling champagne.
There you go.
We had an organization that did it with, and I've talked about this a couple of times. They used the Fireball. They did trays of Fireball shots for a table. It was like $250. Fireball's like $9 for a 55-gallon drum of it. I'm kidding. It's a little more. But
I have some in the garage. Yeah.
But they did that, and they came out and they did this, and people started doing it. But it just got people in a festive mood. We have a friend of ours did an event, and they had a Latin, they had a Hispanic theme, and he hired a mariachi band with dancers.
Yeah.
And every time somebody bought something at the table, they brought a bottle of tequila to it.
He did it. He sold it 19 times.
It got everybody into it. Everybody kind of got jazzed.
That's fun, man. That's why you raised
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because people want, and it's back to the thing. People want an experience.
It's an attitude. It's a vibe.
Even if you're not doing a live auction, or if you're only doing a party, there's an organization that they don't have a live auction. They don't have a fund to need. All they do is sell tables and sponsorships, and it's a freaking blowout party, and it is wall to wall packed, and everybody talks about it every year because it's just a heck of a good time.
Yeah.
They don't even hardly talk.
Yeah.
It's just people getting together and having a big time. They have some activities for them to do around the periphery.
It works
for them.
And
they have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they raised this last year, but it was a lot. And so, all those things can go, and you can do it. 100%. You can do it. You're going to sit there and go, well, I don't know if we can do this. I promise you can.
Add a couple things this time and see how it goes.
It doesn't all have to be in one.
Go put together a super silent auction or a premium silent auction. Do something different that's tasteful, that you will have impact, of course. Ask us if you have any thoughts that you're on the fence about, so to speak, and and we'll nudge you and put our set of eyes on it. Yeah.
I got
Or
a
if you
couple
do,
things
go
to
ahead.
say just real quick before we go.
Yeah.
Bonnie, thank you so much. Bonnie, we were forwarded an email that you said something very nice about us.
Thank you
So
for the
thank
kind
you
words.
very much. It
Yep.
was very nice. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Bonnie.
And you know, you guys, you can do it. I promise you.
100%.
The money's out there. And
100%.
if you've got to put your headphones on and go listen to you know, the
Rolling Stones.
Rocky music or something,
Yeah.
and you know, to get fired up,
Come on.
you can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
want, you know, do whatever you got to do to get your deal. Call us, or
Email,
send us an
yeah.
email. There's
Yeah,
a deal on the
yeah.
Calendly link. You can email us. You don't even have to do that. Jason at hjfundraising.com,
Yeah.
Trevor at hjfundraising.com. We're going to give you some time and
Yeah.
we'll give you examples. We're fortunate that we get to touch a lot of organizations across the country. In
Proud of
every
that.
level. There's not somebody here, well, you know, we're really small. We're only like a $200,000 budget. We've had somebody that had $11,000 budget. Okay. And spent time. I had a lady from Turks and Caicos call me about starting a nonprofit. I don't know anything about Turks and Caicos nonprofit stuff, but we still talked.
Yeah.
And got her some places to go.
Yeah.
All those things are out there. And I'm going to give something away here in just a second. We've got something
cool.
to give away.
Thanks for the kind words as well, Shelly. Appreciate that. That's awesome. Glad to have you on.
We're just do this. And this is the whole thing. This is how you're going to get better. Reach out to other nonprofit leaders. If somebody, this is one thing, put your ego in your pocket and pride aside.
You can learn a lot through osmosis. That's for sure.
If there's somebody that just knocked a home run, that you saw in your organization, pick up the phone, call them and say, can I buy you coffee?
Yes.
Tell me what you do. I'm not asking for your donors. I'm not, you know, people get weird about, but most people will sit there and they'll tell you.
Be transparent. Tell them what's up. Yeah.
And if somebody asks you the
Why
same
not?
thing, be willing to share as well.
Why not?
I think that, you know, great fundraising raises all boats of communities
100%.
around the country. And I just bleed for this stuff because Trevor does as well. And we spend most of our time thinking about how to help people raise more money, and not just with our, you know, it's with this, you know, trying to get new topics and guests and answer questions, because we want you guys to do it because it's out there, and just ask.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
there.
It is out there. There's a lot that you can learn from success, obviously, from those folks that you're witnessing, or, you know, if you crushed it at your most recent event, awesome. Hopefully you're pushing the envelope, twisting the dial, so to speak, and making some changes and not being averse to it and asking for more, and, you know, being thoughtful about this and building relationships and investing in those people with your time, and doing it thoughtfully. I mean, you really can't lose. It's a really wonderful thing. We're also saying, you know, Jason mentioned this, you know, a couple minutes ago. There's a lot of money in the system. There's a tremendous amount of money in the system. Put blinders on to what's going on. I'm not telling you to not pay attention to what's going on in the real world. I'm not telling you to not be sensitive and care, but don't think based on what the news told you. Because, you know, we just did this thing, a really cool podcast where we just we kind of, like I said, reverse engineered some stuff. When the shoe drops, you know, it's like, are you going to stop doing what you're doing? Are you going to stop raising money for your mission? No, as a matter of fact, I would argue that you have an obligation. You have an obligation to raise more money and to be more thoughtful. And like Jason said, to double down, you know, our own experience, our business, a lot of our business is predicated on people buying trips and experiences and gathering in large groups to do it. And for a period of time, as we all know, that was very, very, bless you, that was very, very difficult, right? To get people in, you know, in rooms in large groups, and to get, you know, to have an alacrity for buying trips and experiences, because quite frankly, the destinations you weren't even allowed to go there, you know, for a lot of them. Right. So,
hey, we've talked people out of having events. I talked somebody out of having an event, got them to get on the phone, start going raising money, because they were saying, well, could we do something like this? I said, why would you do that? Pick up the phone, start making phone calls. Let's get you lined up. And
my point with our experience, my point with our experience is that we felt an obligation to we quadrupled down, and it worked, and it's impossible to see what's going on, you know, to not see, pardon me, with what's going on in the world. But from experience now, and I know you all have been through it, and you've come out the other end, and, you know, just once again, just a real polite, encouraging nudge to think bigger, think better, think stronger, have the right mindset, and not be afraid to be creative and not be afraid to ask. And rant is now over.
Hey, congratulations to Shelly Andrade, I think that is.
Cool. All right. So let's see what happens. Look at what happened. Yeah. All right.
Yep. See, there you go. She won a trip that you get to use in an event to help you raise more money. Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Take us up on it. Hey, Sammy, thanks for being here. I can't wait to see you guys next week. I'm going to meet with Sammy and her team, and
cool.
We're going to talk about how to raise some money.
Cool.
And so let's
reach out, y'all.
Thank you all, and everybody. Leave comments below if you're
going to watch us on YouTube. Let us know what you think, and share it with somebody. Plug for the greatest nonprofit podcast in the universe right now. Hey, Nonprofits Raise More Money. You can watch it on YouTube, listen to it on Spotify, Apple. Subscribe, download, rate, review for us, please, as a favor. And it doesn't cost you anything to share it with someone in your network, or 10 somebodies, or your neighbor, or whoever. But we're putting out some really cool stuff on the pod as well, weekly, if not more often than that nowadays.
And they're all like 10, 15 minutes. So that's
great guests.
While you're there.
Great. Yeah. Short form. Do it on the treadmill. Do it in your car, wherever. Play it over the loud system, the surround sound at your office. That'd be kind of fun. That's going to get you excited, because we're more excitable than Bob Ross, and we talk fundraising. We talk shop. So, yeah, enjoy it, everybody. Yeah.
See you guys next time.
Brother.
Thanks
all right. Appreciate everybody. All right. Next Thursday. See you all then. Bye now.